Livingston, and that wasn't far from Menlo Park, which is where Thomas Edison had his laboratory. So my parents, we would do, different things on the weekend, go hiking and things like that. And so one weekend they took me to the lab of Thomas Edison, and one of Edison's laboratory assistants was working at this museum, and they asked for a volunteer to help do this demonstration on a piece of electrical equipment, and they picked me, so I got to operate one of Thomas Edison's machines, and right at that moment I knew I wanted to be an inventor. So on the drive home, I said to my father, when I grow up, I want to be an inventor. And he said to me, well, you can't be an inventor, there's no such job. And that really didn't make sense to me. I was like, well, this guy, Thomas Edison, was an inventor. It seemed like he did okay. I had no idea at that point that he started one of the largest companies in the world. So, there's an important message here, and that is there are people that are going to try to steal your dreams, and don't let them do it. There'll be people that are family members, that are friends. Don't let anyone steal your dreams. As long as it's God's will for your life, go and follow your dream.
Thank you. All right, how about during your upbringing, did you have a mentor that played a significant role in your life?
I've been waiting for him to come out.
Yeah, actually, when I was about 13, I joined a prayer group. And so this was non-denominational, and the person that was, or family that was running this prayer group, the fellow that ran it was an inventor. And he had worked for Johnson & Johnson, and he had quite a few patents to his name. And so we became friends over a course of many years. And when I graduated from college, he had started a company, a very small company, and he asked if I would come on board with him. And so he really helped guide me and teach me about how to design medical devices and how to be thinking like an inventor. His name was Vince Valancourt, and truly amazing guy, and I owe a lot to him.
That's exactly what you need here. You've got to grab onto some mentors in this business that are making it happen. Not to mention having a product that's off the chart that nobody else has. We love the exclusivity. I mean, that's just that's what you need in an industry like this.
Oh, and a quick story about my mentor. I've never told this story publicly. So I was in this prayer group, and Mr. Valancourt had these rosary beads that he would pray with. And he went to Medjugorje, right? So this Medjugorje is supposed to be where the Virgin Mother appears. And he would carry these silver rosary beads with him, and he took them to Medjugorje. He got to the top of this mountain where he was praying by this cross, and he's telling me this story, and then he opens up his hand, and those silver prayer beads had turned to pure gold. So now it was a rosary of gold beads. So this was the type of person I was. He was a he was saved by Christ, and I got the privilege of being with someone that's a believer and also an amazing inventor.
How many patents do you have, by the way?
I'm trying to keep up with my uncle, so it's way past 130. I just got another patent 2 weeks ago, and so I think it's over 150, maybe something like that. It'll clear 180 by maybe the end of next year, somewhere along those lines. And but I was trying to. My uncle called. Anybody here have a cell phone? If you have a cell phone, yeah, my uncle Paul worked for Bell Labs, and he invented some of the basic transistor technology that's in all of your phones. And he had maybe about 150 patents or so before he retired. Yeah, so I was trying to pass him, so.
I mean, that is incredible. I mean, that is amazing. Think about that. People want to know how serious the technology we have behind the X39. You got a
my
gentleman
car,
that's
yeah.
got going on 180 patents. Think about that. Well, I guess your neighbor's got like 160 or whatever, you know what I'm saying, right? Now, how long does it normally take, like, to get for a patent, or you know, for the whole project to come to fruition? Because you got to have the whole. I'm talking about starting from zero, creating the technology or the project, and then taking it all the way to patent. How long does it usually take? Or just an average?
Yeah, well, every product, every invention is going to be a little bit different. My very first patent, which was on the patches, took 11 years to get that patent, not including the 3 years of development, so actually 14 years. From the day that I got the idea to the day I got the patent, 14 years. And then my next patent after that, that was 18 months. And I see Meredith is sitting in the front, so she may have to close her ears, but the patent that I got 2 weeks ago was the fastest patent that I ever got, and that was in under 6 months. And the reason is because this patent is going into a category where there wasn't a category before. It's entirely new art. I guess what I would say is that this patent is going to be the basis for the next product that we're going to come out with. So we can say that the next product we come out with is already patented. So that's really exciting.
Right. How about this? What led you to your decision of selling our patches through a network marketing company?
Yeah, so, actually, probably like many of you, your first experience with networking may not have really been that good. I was in college, and a friend of mine was going to go to a network marketing meeting on water filters, right? This would have been back in the 80s. So I joined him, and they were trying to get me to sign up into this company. So I was asking them these technical questions about the water filter. I wanted to know, how the silver that was in the carbon block, how it was actually deposited in there, and how it wasn't going to get into the drinking water. And they couldn't answer the question for me, so I didn't join. So I went through a number of different businesses that I owned that were all successful, and I had a company in Georgia with a group of guys. This was our office was up in Dahlonega, site of the Gold Rush. So we were very fortunate. We were very close to where the Army Rangers trained. And so what we were doing was developing survival equipment for the U.S. Navy. And the type of people that I would give presentations to were PhDs from MIT and Stanford and those type of places. And so the idea of putting this product into networking seemed silly. I was really looking for a more traditional way to go. So I was looking into advertising on TV. I met with the CEO of GNC, so we're looking at going retail. And then I met a fellow that was interested in investing money into Lifewave, but he couldn't understand the science. So he hired a medical doctor who was a scientist to interview me. And over a course of 2 days, we spent 6 hours on the phone, and we quickly became friends. And he said, you need to speak with Dr. Carl Merritt. He's a very well-known medical doctor and biomedical engineer out in California. So I spoke with Dr. Merritt. And Dr. Merritt was an advisor to Coach Richard Quick at Stanford University. Now, Richard was a 6-time U.S. Olympic swim coach and probably the most famous Olympic swim coach in the history of swimming. So about 3 weeks after meeting that initial person, I was putting patches on Olympic athletes. And that all happened from networking. So I thought, this is a product that has to go through networking. If it sits in a retail store, nobody is going to understand what this product does. So yeah, I would say it became really self-evident that networking was the way to go.
Did you so you didn't have a good experience, and you probably were saying you didn't really want to put it through a network. Is that kind of what you were thinking at first? Before you before you had the aha moment,
Yeah.
you were kind of negative on the idea.
Yeah, it's what I found as an inventor is that God will open doors. And when we develop something in our labs, you can always kind of feel God at work in a certain direction. So you'll work on a project and things don't go well, right? The project is difficult, you're having a problem getting supplies, the timing is really off, and it's like, okay, this is like a resistance, and I shouldn't be going in that direction. On the other hand, there are other projects that we work on where everything goes right, and it's like, okay, I'm meant to go in this direction. So it was very much this way with networking. The talks with GNC were okay, not really perfect. Looking at advertising on radio and TV didn't really make sense, and everything going in the direction of networking was just unbelievably smooth. Every door opened up, and so I thought, okay, this is the direction that God wants me to go in with this. So it became an easy decision.
Wow.
All right, please share with us how the amazing X39 technology works. We got a lot of brand partners that are brand new, so they really want to hear from you. And then we got some highly sophisticated, educated doctors in the room, so kind of relate to all of them on how this technology works.
Yeah, so the first thing to understand, I suppose, is that our bodies are based on light as a form of communication. We have a bioelectrical system in our body, which is all based on math and geometry. And if we can understand what this biological code is, we can do some really remarkable things with it. So the current direction of my research is looking at species that are immortal, and looking at codes, the mathematical codes that we find in the Bible and mathematical codes that we find in nature, which I now think of as being God's fingerprint. And we can use this information to support the body's natural healing systems in ways that haven't been available before. So with the patches, which is one of many different technologies that we'll come out with. I know we'll probably talk a little bit about what's in store for the future, which is incredibly exciting. But on the patches, because this is our foundational technology and our foundational products, they stimulate the skin with a blend of different wavelengths of light that are modulated to contain information. So what does this mean?
Wow.
If we think of laser communications, which have been around for many, many decades now, and that's how fiber optics work. We're going to take a laser, we modulate the light to contain information, and then at the receiving end, that light is unpacked and decoded, and now we can hear voice or see video. So the human body essentially works the same way, meaning that light is emitted from the cells. And actually, how light is emitted from the cells is an incredibly fascinating subject because it's coming from the DNA and the hydrogen bonds in the DNA. And that light emission has actually come from the spiritual realm, you might say. But what this all means is that in the thousands and thousands of different biochemical reactions that are occurring at any one time, there are pulses of coherent laser-like light that is emitted from the DNA, emitted from the cells, and this orchestrates and initiates the changing biochemical environment in the cell. So what this means is that now, through normal course of aging, our glutathione or our copper peptide levels would decrease. But if we know the code where we can stimulate the skin and communicate with the body and say, hey, I'd like to increase those copper peptide levels, and I want to improve the activity of the stem cells in the body. If we know that code, then it's nothing more complicated than stimulating the skin with those wavelengths of light to instruct the cells to elevate the copper peptide. And the exciting thing is that that's only the beginning. What we can do with light-based technology is nothing short of extraordinary.
Wow.
Wow.
He's amazing.
Now, I think with all of what he just said, it'd be interesting to say this. Now, some people know this, some people don't know, but usually if you're networking, if you're with us, this could come up. So I want to help position everybody for success. I've been seeing lately some other patches come my way. People send me emails, texts, or whatever, and say, what about this patch? Get a hold of David, take him, they're violating our technology, patents, whatever. Can you tell them, you've seen most of them, do they have anything close that they can do what you just said to what we are doing? I mean, we don't need to be specific on the patch. You know they're out there. Is there anything that even come closer, or they even talk in our language?
Yeah, there's no other product that's on the market that is duplicating or violating our patents. There's other products, and I would say that when you come across them, do a simple evaluation. You want to see first, do they have a mechanism of action, and does that make sense? Do they have clinical studies to support the claims that they're making? Are they making medical claims? I saw a product recently that was saying, oh yeah, we're registered with the FDA as a Class 1 medical device and we treat all of these diseases. Well, that's utter nonsense, because the only thing that treats a disease, according to the FDA, is a drug, and that's that would be Class 3. So Class 1 would be things like a tongue depressor, and you can't make any claims about medical treatments with a tongue depressor. So I would say, just do due diligence, do an evaluation, but the simple answer is there's no company that's duplicating what we have.
Microphone.
You can be confident in that. You don't have to send any more texts to me, right? What do you say to somebody that says, I've tried the patch, I've been on it for 3 days, could be a week, could be a month, I don't feel anything. Is there something going on with them? Because everyone that I've seen diligently be on the X39 has been getting results. Can you tell us what's going on, for maybe a simple answer for them to help their friend if they are just skeptical, not cynical, but skeptical?
Yeah. So absolutely. So at this point, we've done over 80 clinical studies over the last 20 years on the products. And so when someone says they have not experienced an effect, there is going to be an extremely small percentage of people. I mean, we're talking about 3 or 4% of the population that will not get an effect. Now that effect is measurable. So if we have 96 or 97% of the population responding, that means it's measurable scientifically. That could be through a blood test, a urine test, bioelectrical test, and so forth. So in our studies, which we publish and which hits statistical significance, it means, let's say in the case of X39, is that we measured levels of copper peptide in the blood, and we were able to see increases in those levels of copper peptide. That doesn't mean you feel it, but statistically we can say that with confidence. So then we follow that up with another study, such as a urine test, and we're going to measure the metabolism. So we look at how is the body utilizing amino acids, what hormonal changes might we see with X39, and those things also we hit statistical significance. We also use clinically relevant questionnaires, and we ask people, how do you sleep, how do you feel, overall wellness, and again, we see statistical significance. So the answer to this is that first, when people use the product, the odds are that it's making a change. They may not necessarily feel it. Now, if we think about the way stem cells work in the body, this was discovered at Sanford Burnham in La Jolla, California. What happens is that when a person has an injury, first there's a release of oxidative stress, then inflammatory cytokines, and those inflammatory cytokines are signaling molecules for stem cells. So the stem cells are attracted to inflammation. And what happens is a couple of things. First, we normally think about oxidative stress as a bad thing, but the fact of the matter is that it's there to decrease or kill off the bacteria. So you get an injury, and now the body kicks in mechanisms to prevent you from getting an infection. The inflammation is there so that you can make way for healthy tissue. So wound healing can begin, and then the stem cells go in and start producing collagen and growth factors. But as people get older and their antioxidant systems become depleted, the ability of the body to remove that inflammation declines, and now the inflammatory cytokines kill off the stem cells, and now people are left with these chronic injuries. So for wound healing, it's really very simple. We get the inflammation under control, we increase the number of circulating stem cells, we drive those stem cells over to the injury site. So let's say somebody says, well, I had this knee pain and I used X39 for a month, the knee pain hasn't gone away. Well, this is because they have a higher degree of inflammation in a different part of their body, maybe their shoulder or their lower back. And if you ask them, they're going to say, well, yeah, now that you say it, that lower back pain I've had for 20 years is gone, right? So it's very important that before people start using the products, that they take before after photos, they get an assessment of how their body's feeling, where the aches and pains are, their medical history, so they can be aware of some of these injuries, and then after a month, 2 months, they start to see the changes.
That's 97% are going to see results if they stay on the X39 diligently. Think about this, okay? So that's a good thing. I love what you said about if their knee pain's not going away, question them a bit about other things that are going on in their body, and they're going to find out. And you don't always feel anything. Gene and I both went into the eye doctor. We've been going in for 20 years, and he told us both in separate rooms that our eyes reversed in aging. We've been on the X39 for about 3 or 4 months. 4 months to be exact. And he never told us that 20 years. We high-fived it because we didn't have to buy more glasses, and we saved $1,000 each. So the $99 a month saved us $1,000 each in eyeglasses.
Did I tell you what happened when I went for my eye test?
No.
Yeah, I went for an eye test. Yeah, this is a true story. I went to my eye doctor, and I had moved out to a new part in California in San Diego. So this was a few years ago, and so I went to this eye doctor, and she said, okay, let me set the chart, and I want to see what your close-up vision is like. So read the lowest line on the chart that you can. And I said, okay, made in the USA. And she said, where do you see that? I said, oh, it's down there in the lower right-hand corner. And she goes, you can read that? And I said, yeah. She goes, all right, well, no doubt about your close-up vision, so.
That's amazing, all right? Okay, so tell us a little bit about the adhesive. Sometimes people got a question, they might have an allergy or whatever. Can you tell us a little bit what's made of so we can help answer that question?
Yeah, so we have 2 facilities where we manufacture the patches. One is in the US and one is in Ireland. And from the very beginning, we have made the products as medical grade products. So the facilities are all registered with regulatory bodies, and the adhesive is medical grade. It's manufactured by 3M, and it's a hypoallergenic adhesive. It's an acrylate adhesive, and about 1 in 10,000 people will have an allergy to it. So if you're allergic to the adhesive in Band-Aids, you might be allergic to the adhesive in our product. But the good news is that because the patches stimulate the skin with light, you don't actually have to apply them directly to the skin. It's just that that's the most convenient way of using it. So you could, if you're allergic to the adhesive, you can apply the patch on the inside of the clothing, and that patch is still going to stimulate the skin.
That's crazy.
If I'm wearing a patch, I mean, if I got a patch in my pocket, could I be getting some effects?
Yeah.
If I haven't even opened it up, I'm just wearing an open patch, I stuck it in my pocket, can it be working on my body?
Yeah, there's actually some truth to that, because our bodies emit heat in the form of infrared light. And that's just a normal part of metabolism. And this, of course, is very easy to measure with medical infrared imaging. And that field is going to extend several feet from the body. So before X39, our lead products that we used to demonstrate were IceWave and Eon. So myself and others, we've patched thousands of people at events, so we might have 30 people on stage. And you'd find people where you would be going towards their body with an Eon patch, and they would say that they felt a reduction in pain. And this is because of the patch is working through the infrared of the body and communicating with that. So yeah, do not put the patches directly, the sleeve of patches directly on your body.
And now we mostly promote, I mean, that's our focus. I haven't said another patch's name of yours since I started. I've only said X39, it's the only thing I know, right? And I'm only saying that it's going to try to keep it simple for everybody so they don't have to learn a bunch of stuff. And I'm sure all of them are incredible with all your, whatever, with all of the stuff you've brought to the market. But I want to tell you, the interesting thing is, if you keep it simple for the people, it seems that the X39 pretty much do most things that you would possibly need it to do. And is that most of the sales, or has the sales of X39 taken to a certain degree? So we know we're promoting something that we know that's growing, and we're on the right track. Tell us a little about that.
Yeah, okay, so first, 50% of our sales is X39. That is head and shoulders above any other product. So it's very clear that in building a business, all of the teams that are successful, by the way, shame on me, because I should have started out by saying congratulations to you and Gina and Onyx and your team. You guys have the fastest growing team in the world.
Many that have just gotten started, we ain't seen nothing yet. After they break out of this is it here, we are going to rock this thing and really step it up, so you get excited.
So,
And I love what David, when we first met with him, Gina looked him in the eye and said, can you keep up with us? And you have. Congratulations. Everything you said, you've been doing amazing. Everyone is getting their patches, and they're very excited, and they're confident and happy. And I will say that you and I discussed this before, and it's mostly this team's fault, but I like people to know, because I like to have my friends have everybody's back. We all have each other's back. You're working as hard as you can, and your corporate team, Meredith and the team, and we're doing the same thing. But a lot of times, recently, we've been getting all the products shipped out like clockwork, not a problem. But we've had a little bit of bog in customer service. But I sent you an email the other day, and I said it was Gina's and my fault. We're the reason why they bogged down the customer service, because we have all of you and your friends calling customer service, and they didn't have this before, but you're all working toward that, right? Let's help them understand that that's all coming, and you told me you gave me a good highlight of what's happening.
yeah, so the first thing on the manufacturing, we spent maybe about 2 years ago now, we invested another 3.5 million euros, so that's about, about $4 million US or so, into upgrading our manufacturing. And what we were able to do was take the original equipment that we used to make the patches and include some AI into it for an automated visual detection system, so we can detect any defects. This would be patches that don't seal properly, and a robotic arm comes down and sweeps it off the line, and that happens faster than a human being could do it. So that's been able to increase the speed of our manufacturing by about 3 times over where it was. So the short end of that is that we can support a company today that's doing over $1.2 billion a year in business. So we can accommodate the growth. And in December, we placed an order for the next piece of equipment, and that'll take us up to about 1.8 billion or so. So those along the lines that we're thinking. The other thing I'd say, on the customer service, first I want to thank Meredith, because Meredith has been a godsend. Many of you probably don't know this, but one of the things about Meredith that has been so extraordinary, she's a woman of faith. We start off our calls each day talking about God and talking about our responsibility that we have to humanity to bringing these products to market. And Meredith, thank you so much for being an amazing woman of faith. And also, on the competency level, I haven't met anyone like Meredith before. She's extraordinary. And that gives me more time in the lab and to focus on some other things. In the field of customer service, what we're doing is, keeping up first in the short term by hiring more people, but we're also looking at solutions like AI. So what we've done is we've contracted with a company. We're going to implement an AI chat feature. We're going to implement some other AI software, and effectively it's going to give you customer service that's 24/7, and it's going to improve our ability to keep up with growth. But there will always be human beings at customer service. We're just going to use AI to improve what we have.
Some folks want to know the case studies with the behind the neck, below the belly button. But if they've got an ache or a pain somewhere else in their body, can they put the patch anywhere?
Yeah, with practical. So I'm going to say this from practical experience because it's not anecdotal. Over the last 20 years, I've applied patches to easily over 10,000 people, easily, and as have many of our brand partners. And through practical experience, what we see is that if you take a patch like X39 and apply it behind the neck or below the belly button, first of all, the studies show that that is going to elevate blood levels of copper peptide, right? That's going to be the first thing. Second thing is when you take a product like the Eon patch and directly apply it to a point of pain, you'll see maybe a 50% to 100% reduction in pain in about 2 or 3 minutes. That's from just practical experience of using those products. And there's also, simple and sophisticated ways to use products like Icewave and glutathione for pain relief as well. But for those, I would say for people starting out, start with X39, keep it simple, but there's some, these are phenomenal tools, and when used the right way, they produce dramatic results.
That's great. Now, Pastor Rodney is wearing 4 patches. He likes to do a quadruple study on the patches. Can you wear more than 1 patch?
Yes, and I should also thank Pastor Rodney as well. If you can give him a nice round of applause for putting this all together as well.
So it's all right, you can wear more than 1 patch, it's not a problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
We encourage it, by the way.
What I would say is it's like the patches are like any other tool. So you use them intelligently. So for example, today I'm using X39 behind the neck, X49 below the belly button. I have a set of Icewave on the bottom of the feet, and I also have a set of energy enhancer on the upper body. Then maybe in the evening I'll use either a Silent Nights patch or an Eon or an Alavita. It kind of just depends. I like to experiment. But you don't have to go crazy and put 8 or 10 patches on your body. 1 patch of each one that we have is more than enough to get the job done under most circumstances.
I love the fact that we have the inventor is the owner of the company. That is just, it's incredible. And we've got the inventor is wearing the product. He's using the product that he invented. He believes in it that much. That's very unique in our industry, by the way. So I really appreciate you, David. Give me another hand for just doing everything that he's done for us. Okay, this is a good one for us. Tell us the difference between stem cell injections and the X39. And I'm very intrigued by how it, from what I can heard, that our X39, as the copper peptide raises up in your body, the stem cell activity works in all organs. So tell us the difference between these injections. Obviously the cost is one factor, and then what are they doing?
Yeah, so back when we started this research, this was in the late 2000s, we began a program where over a course of 10 years, we invested was $4.3 million into stem cell research. And we did some of our research in the United States. We did some of the research out at the National University of Ireland in Galway. I was very fortunate to work with Dr. Tim O'Brien. He's one of the most well-respected medical doctors in the world in stem cell research. And we also received a grant from Scientific Foundation Ireland into stem cell research. And some of the things that we found out back in the late 2000s is that there are an enormous number of risks associated with stem cell injections. Now, to clarify this, there is no question that stem cell therapy is the way of the future. And at some point in the future, stem cell therapy will be approved. It'll be extremely expensive, but it will work and it will save people's lives. And diseases that we live with today, such as heart disease, diabetes, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, ALS, those things will become a thing of the past because we'll be able to take young, healthy stem cells, inject them into the body, and regenerate this damaged tissue. No question that's the future, but we're not there yet. And the reason is because when you inject stem cells into the body, depending on what the source is, so is the source your own stem cells or is it someone else's, the stem cells won't necessarily divide the way that you want them to. So we'll start out with an omnipotent or pluripotent stem cell, and then that will divide into what's called a multipotent stem cell, and that will further divide into specialized tissue. So in early studies, such as in Japan, where they were looking at how do we treat Parkinson's disease, and the studies were done on primates, they would inject the stem cells into the brain as a way to treat Parkinson's, and then what would happen is those stem cells would divide uncontrollably, the animal would die, they would open up the animal and find muscle tissue, liver tissue, hair inside of the animal's brain because the stem cells didn't know how to divide. They didn't know how to turn into what they were supposed to. This gets back into the natural biological code. We all have stem cells in our body right now. And as we age, normally the stem cells would decline in their ability to release growth factors and repair tissue. But because this is innate to our own bodies, the stem cells, they know what to do because they're following the code that God created us with. So we're totally fine. Now, what happens though is, if we look biblically at this, we would say Adam was immortal, he fell from grace, lifespan of humanity was about 1,000 years, then humanity kind of went crazy in a bad way, then after the flood, lifespan is about 120 years. We can actually look at biologically how this all happened. There are clues and codes in the Bible that tell us exactly what's going on here. That's a story for another day. But this is all to say that we have something called the Hayflick limit, which is each time the cells divide, the telomeres which control how long our cells are going to live, they shorten, and eventually our body's not going to make any new cells, and it's not going to make any more stem cells. So if we look at, well, how would we reverse this? How could we attain biblical ages, right? How could we live to be past 120 or 130 years? Is it possible to live to be hundreds of years old and stay young in the process? We have to look back at our biological code. So one of the signaling molecules here and the future of where our industry and where the world is going, it's not going to be in normal supplementation. The way we think about supplements today, it's going to completely change. We're going to be looking at ways to induce epigenetic changes in the cells to restore youth and vitality, and then the body already knows what to do. There's good biology and good science behind this. So this is all to say that copper peptide is one of the most single important regulatory peptides in the entire body, controlling thousands of genes, about 1/3 of the human genome. So what this means is you restore your levels of copper peptide, you can reclaim a part of your youth, you can reclaim better stem cell activity, and you can better support the natural healing process in the body. So in terms of tools, copper peptide is number one for what we have today.
Now please, don't repeat that to your next prospect. All right, but now you feel like, oh my gosh, we are onto something here. Some of our brand partners, it happens to me as well, where first of all, most of us are not medical or drug or food. We're not in those industries. But a common question people like to zing at us is this FDA approved? Is the X39 FDA approved? Is the X39 FDA approved? And is there any importance to us promoting this life-changing stem cell reactivation technology?
Yeah, so first thing it's important to understand is what does FDA approved even mean? Because the FDA doesn't really go through an approval process the way that we would normally think about it. So in other words, you have 4 different categories within FDA. You have general wellness, which is down over here. Then you have class 1, which would be our tongue depressors, right? And you have class 2, which would be things like needles, and other implantable medical devices, and you have class 3, which are drugs. So in the class 2 category, that's a good example. If someone has a medical device that's at market, the FDA actually, the words they use are that it's cleared for market. So if you're a company like Johnson & Johnson, you can't say the FDA approved my product. You can say, yeah, it's a class 2 device and the FDA cleared it for market. So that'd be the first thing.
You say ours is clear.
No, because we're a general wellness. So in general wellness category, the FDA, you can just Google FDA general wellness and you'll come up with your guidance. And basically what they say is that if you have a product that improves the flow of energy in the body, improves physical fitness, improves the quality of sleep, improves the quality of memory, mental acuity, then you don't need to go into class 1, 2, or 3 if you follow these guidelines. So that's essentially what we've done, is we've followed the guidelines of being a general wellness product.
Is it FDA or any part of it?
I would say that we're FDA compliant because we're following the standards that the FDA has set for a general wellness device.
And it doesn't matter. I mean, most products that are really good for you are not FDA approved.
Yeah, you know, no one can really, I should say this for, I would say one way to look at it is that aspirin is a well-known drug. And for most of the history that aspirin has been at market, no one has been able to say how it works. So they have, FDA has approved a drug that's on the market where they can't tell you what it does, but they can show you that it's safe and effective. One thing that I should mention though, you know, I don't want to paint the FDA out to be angels. You know, in an altruistic world, we need the FDA because it protects us from bad products on the market. It's just that we know some other things happen because once you get human beings involved, you know, then some not so good characters, you know, can enter. And one thing that we, as a health community, we need to keep an eye on are things like these synthetic meats. Lab-grown meat was now approved by the FDA, and they're not even releasing the nutritional panels. They're cultured in inflammatory fats, and so these are going to have negative long-term consequences on people that consume them. So this is to say the FDA approves things that are rather reprehensible, that they shouldn't approve.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, we've got a lot of doctors. I've never seen so many doctors excited about the X39. Provide a glimpse into the future of Lifewave and X39 concerning our, you know, how we can foresee with all these with all the doctors. How the doctors have started using the patches with their patients. Where do you see this going?
Yeah, so, you know, the first thing is we're going to continue to hire professionals that are in the industry. We brought on some amazing people onto our staff that have come from companies in our industry that are doing over $1 billion a year. And that's the direction where we're going in. So the first thing is let's support the business that we have. Keep investing in our manufacturing, keep investing in our studies, invest in customer service, infrastructure, marketing, sales tools, events, you know, do the basics, support the business. That's the first thing. On my side of the business, which is in research and product development, we are continuing to pioneer new technology that has never existed before that will provide people with tools that I would have to say are going to become a necessity in the coming years. So if we look at what happened with COVID, for most people, it took them by surprise, they panicked, and they didn't know what to do. They didn't know, what can I do to protect myself? And unfortunately, this scared a lot of people into taking the vaccine. And now what we see is the CDC, the NIH, are now coming out and saying, well, yeah, these vaccines do have side effects. And we're learning about that, through the literature. So the way I see this is that we need to come out with new technology to keep up with the threats that are clear and present to our health. And, that is across a whole spectrum of different things, right? We have to protect ourselves from man-made radiation, from the pollutants in our food and water. The COVID vaccine is being put into vegetables now, right? That's eventually going to make it. The mRNA is going into lettuce and spinach. That's published research, by the way. That's not a conspiracy theory. The synthetic meats, that's an assault on our health. So we need new tools. So what do? Well, we go back to the Bible, and we go back to the inspired Word of God. And what we do is we look
Praise
at...
this man. Wow.
We look at what does God have to say about all of this. So what we can do is we can look at species on our planet that never age, because they've been able to defeat the process of oxidative and inflammatory stress. And ultimately, no matter what we're talking about, whatever type of toxin makes its way into our body, it's ultimately going to express itself as oxidative and inflammatory stress. So how do these organisms like lobsters and planaria and tardigrades, clams, mollusks, how do they defeat the aging process, and how do they ultimately control this assault? So what's so interesting about this is the biblical code that's in the Bible. So what I'd ask you to think about for a moment, I assume most of you believe in God, because we're here. All right, that's a good start. So to keep this very short, so we believe that God is Lord and Creator, and what that would mean then is that God must be the best mathematician, physicist, chemist, biochemist, biologist that ever existed. And we would expect to see that in His inspired Word, and we'd expect to see it in nature. So that means we didn't just spontaneously appear, that there is a design, and because there's a design, there's a creator behind that. So we should be able to find some mathematical evidence to this. And I did find that evidence, in fact, and I found it of all places in lobsters. And what we can do, just very simply, I'm going to be talking about this for our 20th anniversary next year in great detail. But the simple thing is, you can take the original Hebrew in the Pentateuch, the first 5 books of the Bible. We can take the original Hebrew, and those convert directly into numbers, and that converts into numerical sequences. And those numerical sequences express themselves in a sequence of prime numbers, which converts over into the geometry of a triangle. And what's so interesting about that is that the triangle is the first solid that ever appears. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, one of the numbers in the story of creation is the number 37. If we go to the book of John 1:1, the number that appears is 73. So that's the mirror of 37. 37 times 7 times 3, that's going to give us the number 3773. So in other words, there's math, again, there's a whole stream of math behind this. The book of Genesis and the book of John parallel one another mathematically. So when you take those codes, when you see the pyramid that forms, the base of the pyramid is Jesus Christ. It's the numerical number 888, which is the base, and God the Father is the top of the pyramid.
That's insane.
That's mathematically provable. And so what we do then is I take those codes, I found them in living species, I convert those over into wavelengths of light, and we applied that information in tests, and what we see is regeneration of the cell. So in other words, through the story of creation and through the coming of Jesus as Lord and Savior, what was given to us was the mathematical code of how to heal the body, how to regenerate the body in the face of what's to come.
Wow.
I don't care. He's amazing.
All right, let's get one more question because you can see the heart of these folks. They want to bless people. They want to help their friends win. They know the way this works is we help our friends win. We'll sacrifice to help them win, and then all of us are going to be blessed. So with the 10 years, it took you 10 years. I'm just really amazed and intrigued by your stamina and all these inventions that you've had, but especially this X39 where you took 10 years of research approximately, like you said earlier, and $4.5 million to invest, and you hung in there for those 10 years. I have people that come in with me and in 2 days they're already tired. Sometimes 2 weeks, I'm like, okay, our system is patched 3 people a day. How are you getting tired by doing that, okay? So can you give them a little insight just for them? Because I want them to break out of here with stamina. I don't want them to get hurt by getting weary and well-doing. I want them to focus on what they can do and have that dream ahead of them. Give them some insight on what your mindset is to help them break out of here when this is over with this evening to have success when they get back home.
Yeah, so what I would say is you're in the right place at the right time. The question is, are you going to do what's necessary to pursue your dreams? And I use an example. Steve and I were talking backstage, and we were talking about this bodybuilder. His name is Tom Platz. And Tom Platz was a big bodybuilder in maybe the late 70s, early 80s, and he was becoming successful financially. And back around 1980 or so, he made $40,000, which was a lot of money back then. And he had $20,000 to do something with. So he was friends with the owner of Gold's Gym. And owner of Gold's Gym said, Tom, if you come in and be my partner, give me that $20,000 and we'll build Gold's Gym together. And he was in the right place at the right time, and he said no. And instead he took that $20,000 and he bought a new Corvette. Gold's Gym was sold 4 years ago for $100 million. And he was going to get 50% of that. So don't make that mistake, right? It's really important that you take action. When I started the company back in 2002, we didn't have studies, we didn't have manufacturing, we didn't have a marketing system, and there were a ton of people along the way that said, you won't be successful with this, the odds are against you, you'll never get it to market, there's too many challenges. There were so many people that said no, but I believed in the future of this technology and the future of the company. Along the way, there were many times where there were obstacles. In 2006, we nearly went out of business. There was a massive credit card fraud in our system, which today I'm grateful for because we learned how to protect the company from those things. But we nearly went out of business. And I'll never forget it. I was in San Diego. I was walking along the beach one Sunday, and I was in prayer. And I said, Lord, I'm going to do whatever it takes. I'm going to stay with this until the very end. But I need to have a way that I can keep this company alive, because we were just staying alive week to week. That Friday, I got a letter from the IRS. And so it didn't seem like God was really answering my prayers. And I came home on a Friday and I thought, oh man, I do not want to open this. I'll wait till Monday. I'm looking at the envelope sitting on my kitchen table. And I thought, all right, well, I better open it, face it like a man, and I'll just have to deal with it. So in the envelope was a check for $163,000.
Oh, wow.
turned out we had overpaid on our taxes the year before, and I was unaware of that. So this was a tax refund. I went, I deposited the money into the bank on Monday. The check cleared. Apparently the IRS was good for the money. And that money carried us. That was in March of 2007. That money carried us to the end of the year. And then starting in 2008, we picked up a leader in France, and we started to experience growth. And the sales in 2008 were double of 2007. 2009 was double of 2008. And so what I'd say is, first, always give thanks for what you have. Lead a life of daily prayer. Pray for God's will to be done, not yours. And God will work miracles in your life. But you've got to do the work. Absolutely.
With that, can we give David a thanks? For being here at the BIO 2019. Show him how much you appreciate him being here. Lifewave's president. We got something a little share from the X30 here from the quantum field team.
So we just want to honor both of you, and we're just so grateful for your time. Know it took time to travel away from your families, and just a little remembrance of this amazing weekend that you participated in, and we thank you so much.